Hey, why don't we get started? Welcome, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us for this webinar today. My name is Michelle Rapp, and I'm the Associate Director of Alumni Career Strategy in the Office of Alumni Relations, and my role is to organize programs, including webinars and networking events. I oversee our NUSource networking platform, and I also do provide some individual coaching consultations to alums. And I'm really excited to have discovered Miranda Holder as one of our skilled coaching alums, and really am happy to have her here today. Miranda is a leadership and career coach who helps mid-career professionals go from uncertain, restless, and overwhelmed to clear on their next steps so they can do meaningful, fulfilling work with harmony in their personal and professional lives. She uses a body-centric approach so clients get clearer faster and are able to make and sustain changes more quickly. As a former elite level rower, collegiate head coach, US national team coach, and yoga instructor, Miranda brings unique experiences and a high performance approach to leadership and professional development. She has a master's in sports leadership from Northeastern, a BA in English and studio art from Wellesley College, and received her leadership coaching certification from Georgetown University. Excited to learn more from her today and to get started with this blueprint approach. Turn it over to you, Miranda.
Thank you so much, Michelle. And thank you all so much for being here in the middle of your Thursday and spending a little time with me and with us. Thank you so much. We'll dive in. Just give me a moment while we share my slides. And here we go. So I'd be curious, what brought you here today? I'd love for you to drop into the chat. What brought you here? And just so you know, as we get started and continue to welcome people in, there's no wrong answer to any of the questions that I posed today. And you can pop into the chat box at any time. So I'm curious what brought you here? What made you want to click the register button? What made you feel like this was the right place to be? And Michelle, if you don't mind, when you get a chance reading off what comes in, I'd appreciate it. Oh, we can't hear you.
Got it. Ready for a change after 7 years in my post-undergrad role. A couple people recently laid off. I want to move forward with my career, and I'm not sure how. And looking for a new direction in my career. Oh, things keep moving on me, so lots coming in. All right, making a career transition from running a small business, looking for a fit that aligns with my values and future goals. I'm here to help connect the dots to make my next move as I'm searching for my next opportunity. Hated my job and quit. Feeling stagnant in my current role with limited growth opportunities with the company. Recently moved to a new city post-pandemic. Career transition. I work remotely and I'm in an entry-level job looking for a greater challenge.
Lots of different things.
Just to add more alignment with values in life, more mission-driven. Also a civil service job with a pension, 12 years, but no personal career growth. Wanting to make an intentional career transition to another job that's more aligned with my skill set and desired lifestyle. Looking to transition to tech. All right, we have a lot to work with here.
Thank you so much for dropping that in. And another thing that I think is really important to say as we begin is whenever I present either virtually or in person, I don't look at myself as a teacher and I don't look at you as the students. There is wisdom in this space collectively, and so I invite you to share it. I'm not the only one with wisdom here, and I'm looking to you to bring in your experience and your wisdom as well. Another important thing to say is that I won't have a Q&A at the end. So if you have questions, please drop them into the chat as we go. And so I want to share with you, this is a topic that I am super passionate about. And so I want to share with you what's possible on the other side. And so what I'm hoping is that there's a reason. I know there's a reason because we just heard them, that you came today. But what I'm hoping is beyond what your brain told you, that there's something deeper inside you that's longing for something different, and that you're responding to that longing by showing up. And so if you're wondering if you can actually do a job that you love, or if work can be different, I'm here to tell you that it can be. And I'm living proof of it, and all of the clients I've worked with are living proof of it. And if you follow your own lead, you can create a path forward. And my personal belief is that every single human being on this planet has gifts to offer the world. And when you actually offer your gifts to the world is a better place with those gifts fully expressed. And so today, I want you to leave having a clear mental model for how to move through that process. So when I work with clients, that's often, for a number of months. I can't compress all that into 1 hour, unfortunately, but I can give you an overview of what this process looks like, and hopefully give you some encouragement and a taste of how to move forward for yourself. And so I want to just start by sharing 3 fundamental truths about transitions. And these are true for any transition, but for the purposes of today, we're talking about careers. And so one of the first ones is that space is absolutely critical. For a lot of us, we're moving really fast through our lives, and there's a lot of information and a lot of stuff coming at us all the time. I often like to think about us being on treadmills, whether or not you're athletic, whether or not you like running, it can feel like it's never ending. The pace of stuff coming at us, things that we're required to do, and the pace of our life is breakneck. And so it's very, very hard to do something different without space. So there needs to be a way to get off that treadmill. And that can look like going to a yoga class once a week, or taking a walk at lunch, or a week of vacation away from maybe even your friends or your family, to think about what you want to do next. Or maybe it's a mini sabbatical or a real sabbatical. It can be a whole bunch of things, but you need to get off that treadmill for a little bit if the pace is intense, to actually think and feel and inquire and reflect on what could be different. And if you are under any, if you are at all confused, I'm here to tell you that unfortunately you'll be leaving your comfort zone. And this is a lot of the reason that people feel stuck, is it feels very, very, very uncomfortable and scary, to leave something behind that's maybe been comfortable, even if it's doing a job that you don't love, that you've been miserable at. It's the devil, to use the cliche. And so it can be really, really scary to have to actually go outside that comfort zone of what's familiar. And a career transition happens in many steps. It's often not, I remember feeling myself that when I was in one place, it felt like there was I was on one side of a ledge and there was a giant chasm, and then I had to jump across that chasm to this other space. And it can feel like so much pressure and so much fear. But really, it looks a lot like this picture that I'm showing you. It's a lot gentler. It's a lot more straightforward, and it takes a number of steps. And so there's often a few things to do on the way. And changing is more about taking these small steps repeatedly and in a determined way over time than having to make this giant big leap. And so I want to talk about, there's 2 journeys that we need to go on when we make a transition. And I want to talk first about the inner journey. And it starts with feeling stuck. And a lot of people wonder what that even means. Like, am I stuck? I don't know. I think about being stuck as feeling like you don't have a lot of room, and you don't have a lot of agency, and feeling like you can actually change. And it doesn't actually feel like you know where to go or you have space to go anywhere. And so if you're feeling stuck, you're actually in a really great place because you're acknowledging what's true. And as you leave your comfort zone, you have to get into that place of accepting that you're stuck. And that's it might not sound like a lot is happening when you're just going from feeling it to accepting it, but the acceptance is the ability to actually locate yourself at the beginning of your journey. And from there, we go into desiring something different, go into believing it can be different, which is a hard place for a lot of people. And then we get into getting support as we go on this journey. And so this is a really just an overview of that inner journey. And I find this is where a lot of people really benefit from having other people with them on this journey. Because the outer stuff, which we'll talk about in a little bit, is a lot more straightforward. It's the inner stuff that can be a little bit sticky. And then I put this in the center as, and we'll talk about this a little bit more down later in the presentation, but for the purposes of you understanding this visual, what I mean by the inner compass is simply taking into account the whole of your being as you're making this decision. So not just thinking about things, not being simply intellectual or cognitive as you're moving through a transition, but to really take into account your whole being, your emotions, your spirit, your soul, how you feel in your body, everything as you move through. And if that sounds like hippy dippy and weird to you, I'll share more about how grounded in science that approach is later on. And I'll just pause here. Michelle, any questions in the chat? Or if anybody has any, feel free to drop them in.
Give people a minute.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll move on. But if they come up, don't hesitate to drop them in. So just, I want to dive into these with a little bit more specificity. So I'm curious, as you begin and you have this awareness, you have to notice or be aware that you're stuck. So that manifests like, how is that showing up for you? What isn't working right now? A lot of the clients that I work with, they actually have a really hard time even telling me where they're trying to go at the beginning because they're so deeply mired in what isn't working right now. And that's actually a really great place to start because what isn't working actually is a giant arrow or a giant series of arrows pointing toward what you actually want. So awareness is the first step. Another step is acceptance. So you must accept that you're stuck. We can't set a course for the future without being present in the now. And that doesn't mean, for those of you, that word acceptance has such a often negative connotation for a lot of people. It feels like resignation, like I should just accept this. This is the way it is. All right. But it's actually an acknowledgement of my journey is starting here. My place is right now. This is where I am, and then I can actually chart a path forward. So if you've ever used your GPS, you can't do it unless you actually have a location of where you are now. It doesn't work. So this is acceptance. And then desire, and this is a really tricky one I found for all adults, particularly high achieving, high performing, responsible, hardworking, pick your modifier of choice. This is a hard one to get into because if you've worked hard and you've made a bunch of really responsible decisions, you've often done so at the expense of your desire and what you've wanted. And so we often see our desire as not something that we can trust, not something as adults that we should be even in touch with, not something that we're even allowed to feel. And depending on the culture or the religion or the family of origin that you came from, your relationship to desire can be complicated. But it begins by allowing yourself to be in touch with this. What if I wanted? What could be possible if I long for? Answering that question, being able to ask and answer that question is so profoundly important. And then ultimately, you need to believe it can be different. If you think that because you spent 18 years in an industry, you can't do anything different, you won't move beyond this step. And so if I had to locate the one place where people get stuck the most, it's right at this bullet point. So you have to believe it can be different. And then the more support you have, the faster and more successful you'll be. And so there is this, I find this pervasive belief also among, I think, a lot of adults that somehow we're supposed to do all this on our own. And if you're being a good, responsible, hardworking adult, you should figure it out. Like everybody else seems to have it together, so why don't I? And in fact, I think it's like quite the opposite is true. There's a really pervasive narrative in our culture that somehow everybody does something. They do things, they do important, great things, and they do them alone. And nothing could be further from the truth. And so the more support you have, the better things are going to be. So I encourage you to invite people into this journey. And that can look like all of you that are here right now are doing exactly that. You're reaching out to Northeastern for support. You're here. But it can look like other people in your family. It can look like your network. It can look like working with a therapist or a coach. But I encourage you to get support on this journey because it is not something to be embarked upon solo.
We do have some questions. One is actually about whether the slides would be shared afterwards.
I'm happy if that person wants to email me directly, I will send you the slides.
And another question about support. How do we communicate that to those around us that might depend on us?
How do we communicate that to those around us that might depend on us? I think I need a little more context to answer that question better. Can that person elaborate a little, please? And thank you.
And how can I address the stuckness while also coping with burnout? I barely muster up the energy to do my current job, and I'm left feeling depleted and lacking motivation to apply for new jobs, which I find very time-consuming and mentally demanding.
Yeah. And again, I will say I'd be happy to have a conversation with that person at a separate time about that. But what I'll say is what I've learned, and this is as somebody who I left after a decade of collegiate athletic coaching, profoundly burned out. And part of the reason I ended up there is because I did not, ironically enough, even as an athletic coach, did not understand that my physical reserves were something I had to attend to. And because we've got, if you picture your car having a gas tank, if you've still got a car with gas, like we have reserve tank A and reserve tank B, and we actually have a lot in reserves that we can tap into. But there comes a point where that stops, and either our body or our mental and emotional state like completely there's nothing left. I mean, my hair started falling out at the end of my coaching career, my athletic coaching career. My body was so stressed, but I did not build in time. I didn't feel as if I could build in time to take care of myself. And so part of, who I've become who I needed 10 years ago. I needed someone to help me understand that part of the reason I was struggling and burned out was because of the approach I was taking to life. And I needed someone's help to see that suffering was largely self-imposed. And so I'm not at all blaming this person, you beautiful individual who are burned out and finding it hard to find all this energy. I'm not blaming you. I'm just saying at some point we have to recognize that if we don't take the time to rest and recover, there's no magic sauce. Like there's no silver bullet to fix that problem. It's relatively simple. And just because it's simple, it doesn't mean it's easy to do. So I'll pause. And Michelle, let me know if
Yes.
second person responded.
Yes. So a clarification about dealing with others that depend on us, meaning we know we're on a journey with many steps that will take time, but others are not as understanding.
Yeah. I know. So one of the things that I'll say about this career transition is we talk about it like it's a career transition, but often it's an identity transition because what's happened to us as adults is things have changed in our lives. We've maybe become parents, we've maybe lost people, things have changed in some way. And so the expression of us at work needs to change as well. And sometimes that means friction or difficulty with people in our lives. I will tell you that when I left athletic coaching and I went into leadership and career coaching, some of the closest people to me did not understand what I was doing. They were like, "You're moving to Vermont? Are you retiring? We don't get it." And it was really lonely and hard to have some of the people that were closest to me really profoundly unaware and maybe even negative about what I was doing. And so to that person who might feel that way or who's worried about feeling that way, this moment actually might be an invitation to, if these are friends, it might be finding some different people or expanding that circle. If it's family, maybe the opportunity is to be in different conversations or to maybe be in what feels like some hard conversations about what's true for you now. I know that's not a simple or easy answer, but that's what I've got.
A related question too is how to deal with family and friends who believe in the hustle culture. Thoughts about the idea that you should always be working.
Yeah. Yep. I'm just processing that because I also have, I was quite literally last week with some in-laws who definitely have that approach. And I think they also think I'm a little bit strange and weird, that I have a different kind of lifestyle and a different approach. And I think, ultimately, this is why this is such an internal journey, is you're getting to this place of deciding, who am I? Who am I becoming? Who do I want to be? What does that look like? And can I accept myself? Because ultimately, everyone else around you is going to have a lot of different opinions about who you are and whether or not you're doing it right. And at the end of the day, the discomfort really comes from our own opinions of ourselves. And when you really accept yourself, and again, I know I'm making it sound easy. It's not. That's a lifelong journey for almost all of us. When you accept yourself, other people's perspectives fall away, or they're less, they don't have their hooks in you in the same way.
Okay,
Anything else? We're good.
we're good.
All right. Great questions. Thank you for throwing them in. Keep going. So I'm going to invite you to do an exercise because I'm a human too. I don't like staring at someone else's PowerPoint slides ad nauseum. So let's get you invested and invited in. So grab a piece of paper if you don't have one already, and a pen or a pencil. And I'm going to actually give you 90 seconds on the clock, and I'm going to manage the time. And what I want you to do is lean back in your chair and maybe close your eyes and drop your gaze. And I'm going to invite you to imagine that it's June 13th, 2025. And you have had the best year of your life. Like whatever it is that you want or can imagine, it's happened this year. And I invite you not to say no to anything that you think can or can't happen, but really let this be a creative, fun exercise. So you've got 90 seconds to write down, it's been the greatest year of your life to date. What is true? What happened during this year? And here come your 90 seconds. Okay. So this is an exercise that you could spend half a day or a whole weekend on. 90 seconds certainly isn't enough, but it's enough to get you started. And I'm curious if you can drop it into the chat. What did you notice about what you wrote down? What did you notice? about what you wrote down. And Michelle, when and if stuff comes in, if you don't mind sharing, that would be great. And
Okay.
feel free to synthesize.
Okay, one comment is notice less about the actual job / career and more about the feeling and impact on the rest of my life. Daniel says, I noticed that I have a lot of things I want to see happen and that most of them are possible. It's a good path to get started on. Another one from Sheila is the hustle mentality of wanting things for me. Oh, Daniel clarifies, need a good path. Sabrina says there were some big accomplishments, but also had more free time, felt more at ease and joyful. Abe says it's painfully out of reach. Jeff says a lot of things I want in the next year are around family, community, and building the human connection. Also looking for satisfaction in work and support and mentorship from a great team. Joanna says more things were about lifestyle, personal life. Besa says the biggest focus was in having a better work-life balance to focus on my personal life. I noticed how I wanted to feel in the next role. And Lakeisha says more optimism and positivity in my attitude. My faith was reactivated. Erin says notice skills that I need or think I need require self-improvement on my end.
Yeah, great.
I noticed that the 90 seconds was really powerful because just a lot was there fast. We always think it has to be really lengthy.
Yeah, no, but you can get at it if you're quiet and still. There's a lot that's there, right there beneath the surface. And I love that so many of you talked about the feeling that you wanted to have, because so often when we set a goal, we think, okay, I want to get, if I have this kind of job or this kind of work-life balance, or I'm engaged in this way, you know, what we're really saying is I want to feel like this, and I think this thing will help me feel that way. So I love that you're getting into the feelings.
And a couple more comments came in. Wants and dreams for the future felt more in reach. The impact on mental health would be tremendous, but also recognize that the true desired path is not plausible. So finding comfort, acceptance, and enjoyment in path 1A is paramount. And another is things were not related to the career transition or work, mainly milestones, family and health related goals.
Yeah, the power of reflection, even just a little bit. So I'm going to share with you the #1 obstacle on the transition journey. And the spoiler alert is it's you. It's your own belief system. This is both great news because you're in control of this on some level. It's within your own zone. And it's really hard because it's often a system that's been deeply ingrained over many years, and it's embedded socially within your family, within your culture, within your friends. It's deeply embedded, so it can take a little bit of time to change. So we make, if you're not already aware of this, we make certain mindsets and beliefs true through collective action. So what do I mean by that? I mean that when we all, it's like, we could say this is true about money. We've given money value because we all decide that this is what money means, and this is, we trust the system. And so we've decided this piece of paper, this coin means this amount. If we all buy into it, quite literally, no pun intended, we make it true. And so I'm going to put some of these up here and we'll go through them. But these are some beliefs that we hold about careers and about professional lives. So we say you can do work you love for less money, or work you hate for lots of money. We also say work is a grind and it's not supposed to be fun. We say if you're not satisfied, something is wrong with you. You should just be grateful. Can't tell you how many times I've heard that. Well, I can pay for my life, so Shouldn't I just be happy? I hear this one a lot too. Once you're in an industry for a certain amount of time, you can't switch. I've been doing this for 20 years. I've been doing this for whatever. I hear this a lot too. You need to stay at a job, even one that makes you miserable, for 2 years to not seem flaky or unreliable. And then I'm not, insert your modifier here, old enough, young enough, educated enough, experienced enough for that, whatever it is. So I'd love, if you want, to drop into the chat, and Michelle, you can read them off. What am I missing here? I'm sure there's more. What other beliefs are there? What are your limiting beliefs?
I can add a belief that it's going to be too hard.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
Some others coming in need more schooling, certificates, training. I might fail if I take a different role. The can't switch attitude is pervasive with recruiters, hiring managers, etc. Perhaps the hardest thing to break through to be seen as someone who has both value and versatility. I have too much well-rounded experience that I don't fit into a box for a role a company is looking for. I think one of the things that I needed to work on is building confidence in my abilities. I'm good at my job. My current organization needs me, and I'm abandoning them if I leave to better my own circumstances. Won't be able to match previous income in a new industry. The current job stinks, but oh, that bonus golden parachute. It'll take too long to break even, and I might be maybe too old now, I think is what that means. Wasted years / money on a certain degree if I want to make a big change. Employers won't take me seriously if I change fields.
Yeah. And to be clear, I want to say very, very clearly, I want to make sure that you hear me. I don't think you're crazy for thinking what you think. There is lots of evidence. This is why I said collective action. There's lots of evidence and lots of people that buy into everything that's on the screen and everything that you put into the chat box. So you're not delusional, and you're not like off in la la land, magical thinking, like having your own thoughts. Like we can all identify people that we know who have taken a job because they really care about the cause. I used to be one of those people, and I thought, it didn't matter that I didn't make enough money. And we can also find people who do work that they hate for a lot of money. Maybe even you fall into that category. Like we have evidence for all of these things in real life. So you're not insane for thinking them. However, all I'm trying to point out is when you look at the world, to use that first bullet point as an example, when you look at the world and you've only given yourself 2 options, those are the only options you will choose. And when you work to become more mental, I call this mental flexibility. I quite literally think of stretching, like to see that there might be a third way. What could a third way look like? What if I wanted to do work that I love and I wanted to live a comfortable, abundant lifestyle? What if? What would it look like if then? And even just starting in your brain from that place changes how you feel, it changes the behavior, it changes what you are noticing in the world around you. It begins to open the door, and the door opens here first. And like, let me tell you, I'm suspicious of everyone on the internet who says that they've got solutions to problems. Like, I am cynical and critical and analytical, and I don't like anyone to promise me magical solutions. But I can tell you, after 18 years as a coach and 10 specifically, or almost 9 rather, as this kind of coach, a leadership and career coach, it all is here, and it starts here. And when this changes, everything else does too. So we got into that a little bit. What limiting beliefs do you have where you are, about where you are right now? And now I want to talk about the outer journey. And this is going to look very familiar to all of you, and none of it's going to be a surprise. I still think it's useful to talk about because there's some tweaks and some different things here that a lot of people don't think about. And the beginning place is to actually start with a dream list of possibilities, which again, some people find really hard to do. I have a client right now who is in private equity, and he thought, there's no way I can even come up with this possibility list. I can't do it, Miranda. And so what we did was we actually came up with a list of what he doesn't like first. And that's where we started. But if you can, you put everything on this list. And then you can notice themes and patterns on that list. And then we work to create the ideal. So what would the ideal day, week, month, year look like? What do I want my life to look and feel like? We identify the top options from that list. And then we network beyond. And I'll tell you a little bit more about what that beyond looks like. And then here's a critical one that people often miss out on or overlook, I think. And that's experiencing possibilities. And we'll go into that more on the next slide. Then you have to notice and discern. And then you have to take your next step. And again, all this done with keeping in your awareness how you feel through this whole process, not just approaching it intellectually only. And so what do I mean by all these aspects? So that first list, the only rule to making that list is you can't say no to anything. And what goes on that list can be everything from actual job titles, it can be industries, it can be I like talking to people, it can be I really enjoy being outside. It's everything that brings you energy, everything that you've even considered possible. If I had to make this list, I've made this list in my head a million times just for fun because I like doing it. Even though I would do my job for no money, I love my job so much and I love making this list. On mine is professional snowboarder and interior designer. I don't actually want to do either of those jobs, which is why my list is not real, but it speaks to my love of being outside and being physical, and also my love of design and creativity. So this list can be really, really helpful for noticing what themes and patterns. So what does this list tell you about you? And so even if the list is 3 things and it doesn't say much, that's telling you a lot about where you are right now, and it's really useful. And so the next step is to create or dream up the ideal day, week, month, and year. And again, I can feel your brain through the internet right now being like, this is a dumb idea. Like, I can't do this. But until you start to actually put pen to paper and think about what that is, and what if I could do that? What does it look like? Again, the door begins to open for creating that possibility or seeing how you could create that possibility. But if you never write it down, if you never identify it, it will not just happen to you. It won't magically appear. So from that grand list that you've created, you can identify 1, 2, 3, 5 options using your inner compass. And what I mean by that is what makes you feel excited, what makes you feel energized, what makes you feel alive. Like, what on that list are you like, oh, I really want to, like, that'd be so cool if I could, that, yeah, I want to learn more about that, versus what on there is like, I could do that, but I don't really want to. And that list doesn't have to be the thing that guides you through the whole process. Again, that same client I mentioned earlier, when he came up with his list, that list took us somewhere else. It wasn't even that list that the thing that he's on now is not the thing that was initially on that list. So this is what I mean by those many steps. Like, these things, these resources, these exercises continue to move you further down the path. They don't have to be the end all be all, and they don't have to be the thing that rolls out this long, perfect plan in front of you. So you've got to use your body when you think about and when you feel into, quite literally, this list and seeing what excites you. And so when I say network beyond, so if you looked at you've made a list, you've got 3 options of things you want to explore. Most likely the people in your immediate network are not going to be people that do that thing, because if they were, you probably might have already talked to them. So what you'll need to do is go 1 or 2 degrees, maybe more, beyond your network. So that looks like letting people know what you're interested in and saying, who do you know? Like, I'm trying to get into healthcare, or I'd like to explore more about tech, or do you know what it's like to be in politics? Like, who do you know? Friends, colleagues, who do you know that you can connect me with, that can tell me more about what it's like to be in this industry or do this job? And then the experience piece comes in the sense that you can't think your way to a new job. You need to allow yourself to feel and experience it. And the best way to gauge how it makes you feel is to get as close as you can by talking to people and learning more. So when I was changing careers the second time from athletic coaching into leadership coaching, and from the outside, everyone thinks, oh, you went from coaching to coaching. Well, what a leap. That seems so hard. It was profoundly hard because I didn't know where I was going. I left coaching and I thought HR, recruiting. I was looking at the skills that I currently had. And that was even a leap to get there. At the beginning of it, I was like, I wear sweatpants to work. Who's going to hire me to do anything? But as I began to explore, I thought about sales, HR, recruiting, a whole bunch of things. And as I explored them, it was very, very clear in my body that I did not have any interest in these things. Like, I could do them, but I didn't want to do them. And the farther down the paths I got, and the more interviews I got, and the farther along in those processes I got, the more I was like, I cannot do this. And everyone has always said to me, oh, it's so brave, you started your own business. And the way I felt, quite literally in my body, is there was no other option but to go out on my own. And that feeling was a gift, because it was that compass directing me through this process. And at the time, I didn't understand the science behind that, but there is legitimate, well-researched, and well-established science to prove that we have to listen to these aspects of ourselves if we want to do work that makes us feel the way we want to feel. And so experience is absolutely critical. And so as you network and you learn more about your options, you've got to use your body, use your nervous system to discern and to notice what happens. So when you talk to someone, you go through an interview, when I started to network with people to find out about leadership coaching, I remember putting down the phone one day and being like, I totally want to do that. That sounds so exciting and so interesting. I wanted to talk to more people. I wanted to learn more. I wanted to apply to a certification program because I was really excited about it. The sales job that I heard about, not so much. It wasn't for me. And so when you use your whole decision-making system, you can determine the next step. And the way I like to think about it is that your brain can lie, but your body can't. And what I mean by that is that your brain can tell any story about what is going on in a moment. It can concoct a narrative. That's its job. That's what it's supposed to do. But your body will always know whether or not something is right for you. And part of the skill to learn is to discern between what's the story in my head and what do I actually feel. And that is like a muscle that you can develop the more you use it. And so before I get into this, I'm just going to pause. Michelle, are there any questions that have popped up?
Question came up. You advise first reaching out to people over email or LinkedIn when trying to engage others to learn more?
Depends on how well you know them. But I think one of the gifts of a career transition process is that it does re-engage you with your network and with friends and acquaintances. So I think you can do it over email. I think you can also reach out via phone. It really depends on the context, the person, but I would say use it as an excuse to connect and deepen that relationship with that person. Because people, by and large, want to help each other and they want to be useful to each other and they like feeling useful and necessary to each other. So when you do reach out, either by email or text or phone, you're signaling to them that you care, you're invested, and that they matter. And that's a good feeling.
And that's it.
Okay, great. We'll keep going. So as I said before, your nervous system is constantly providing feedback for you about what you need. That is how it works. That is how it's evolved. That's how it's designed. That's what it's there for. However, our culture teaches us that our bodies are, they're not trustworthy. They are primitive, they're emotional, they are reactive, and they need to be controlled, managed, polished, made bigger, made smaller, depending on your gender. There's a lot of messages that we get about not being able to trust ourselves. And the tricky thing about this is that inside your body, when you have a feeling about, do I go right or left? Do I want to learn more about this industry or not so much? That feeling lives right next door to fear, to bias, to cultural conditioning. So I think about it like a giant plate of spaghetti, or like that part of I have a drawer at home where there's like all the random chords jumbled together in one corner. Like it feels like such a jumble of feelings and stuff. It can feel hard to pull all this stuff apart. And your job, if you want to operate this way, is to tap into that more. And I'll say more a little bit about like what that actually means and looks like, but to tap into that, to begin to notice like, what's my fear and what's my intuition? What's my sense that this is the direction that I want to go in? And what's my resistance because my family told me that I need to prioritize financial stability over everything else. So more information travels up to your brain through your vagus nerve, which is what this picture we've got on the left-hand slide or left hand of the slide, then down to your body. So there is more data going up than information going down. So this whole idea of your brain is up here and your body is kind of like the vehicle and your brain is driving the whole show is just actually not biological reality. And so tapping into this information, this real-time present moment data is critical for decision making. And as I mentioned, we're cultured to separate from our physical sensations. Another way to refer to this is your embodied self-awareness. So not just your conceptual self-awareness in your mind, but your feeling of yourself, like your ability to feel into your body. And reading your compass means reconnecting with those sensations to learn to discern. And so using this compass, the key to it is simple, and yet, as most things that are simple, not easy to do. You need quiet space to be able to hear yourself. You need time to process and not to rush. And you need repetition to do that discernment work. So what is what? What's my fear? What's that sense of direction? And the cool thing about, so all the nerves inside your torso and your ability to feel those nerves are actually physically smaller and they're unmyelinated, which means they don't have a covering or a sheath. And so it actually means that those are more difficult to feel. When they're sending you a signal, it's harder for us to feel that, different from the nerves that are in your skin or in your muscles. And so this is why you need quiet space, time, and repetition to take a breath, to take a moment, to lean back in your chair at your office and to say, hold up, what's going on? What am I feeling right now? What is this trying to communicate with me? And is this my reaction, or is this me actually having an inclination about something? And it's like getting to know someone. It's a relationship you have with yourself. And so it takes time to develop that. And if you haven't done this, maybe ever, it'll take some time to learn how to do it. And that's okay. And so we're going to do an exercise together right now so you can feel what I'm talking about, because me just sharing an idea with you is not helpful. You need to feel it, quite literally, to experience it, to know what I'm talking about. So what I'm going to invite you to do is to, if you're standing, you might want to sit down or just let your arms drop by your side. If you're seated, I'm going to invite you to lean back in your chair, to close your eyes, or to drop your gaze. And I invite you to drop your awareness down into your body. And so what I mean by that is, what can you feel right now? Not your emotions, but your physical sensation. What does your body feel like right now? What does it feel like to be breathing? What does it feel like? What does the air in the room that you're in feel like? How do the clothes feel against your skin? So you're bringing your awareness down into your body. And then I'm going to invite you to imagine that seated across from you is your wise self. And I'm going to pose a question. And I invite you to consider the first thing that comes up into your brain, the first answer that pops up. Let that be true. What does your wise self have to say to you right now? What does your wise self have to say to you right now? And when that answer comes up, I invite you to write it down. And when and if you feel ready, I invite you to drop it into the chat. I've got it open, Michelle, and I saw you closing your eyes. I'll read these off. You have worth. You've got this. Keep going. You have the power. You have the power to change things. Focus on healing. Stop guessing yourself. God has you. Drop the ego. Just say yes to everything and follow the path. You're doing good. Keep going. The pieces are falling into place. There is no rush. You've got this. You will find your rhythm. Take it easy. You need a career that will challenge you to grow and help others grow. You can't stay bored. Be kind to yourself. Life is good. Enjoy what you have and don't rush from one thing to another. You are enough. Celebrate and have more fun. Every time I ask people to do this exercise, it gives me chills and it makes me want to cry. Like there is so much wisdom and love and compassion inside of us, so readily accessible right there in just a moment. Thank you so much for sharing what came up for you. So here are some takeaways from me as we wrap up. So as I mentioned before, a successful career transition is most often a series of persistent small steps. You are your own biggest limitation. Notice your/society's limiting beliefs. I invite you to listen to your wise voice. Who you surround yourself with matters, especially in this phase. Find people who support you and champion you. And when in doubt, always, always, always bet on yourself. And I'm curious what you're taking away. And so if you want to drop that in the chat, I'd love to hear it. Or if you have any last questions. And Michelle, whatever comes up, I'll ask you to read them out.
Great. Love yourself more.
That's a beautiful one.
It seems like we don't take enough time to listen to these positive voices, is my observation.
I agree.
A few more things. I have to stop waiting to go for it. There is no perfect path. Even just coming here today, I questioned, but did it. Reflect more on what you want and don't want in order to get more clarity. It was just confirmation that it's okay for me to make my transition. My takeaway is to network with my jobs activities list.
Great. Thank you for sharing that. And so I want to support you. And that can look like, I'm happy to talk to you about what it looks like to work with a career coach. I'm also just happy to talk to you person to person, to answer any questions, to share more about my story if it's useful. So please reach out to me, because this is the thing that I do. This is what I love. I have had the privilege of supporting hundreds of people at this point through career transitions. It is work that I am profoundly honored and privileged to do, and I love talking about it. And so please feel free to reach out, to schedule a call. If you'd like the slides, you can email me and I'll send them to you. But I so appreciate you. Like when I see people sign up for this, when I see you in the room, I see you taking that step and putting like a stake in the ground to say, I can do this. This is possible. And the world needs more people like that. So I so appreciate you doing that for yourself and being here. And Michelle, thank you so much for having me and being willing to partner with me on this.
Thank you. And there's a couple more good comments coming in here, positive comments. I feel a lot of pride in my job and the field I'm in. This will be a big identity change, but it's okay to find a new job to be proud of. Another one is believe in yourself and trust yourself.
Yeah. And if you had a question that you either didn't like the answer to today, or you didn't get a good answer, or you have a question you didn't ask, send it my way, because so many of these questions have a lot of context and the one size fits all doesn't really work. So I'm happy to talk more questions with you if you're willing to reach out directly.
And Miranda, thank you so much. I feel like there was a really sort of gentle flow to the model that you presented, and you made it easy. You made it feel easy. I think in such a short time to get such clarity, and I appreciate all of you who attended for these wonderful comments as well and insights. I think I'm gonna take a look at those positive things, because I feel like all the people we work with can benefit, you know, when you see that positivity. I think we tend to see the worries and the obstacles somehow more easily, but this is a very powerful process that we can all take away and use. And I appreciate your wisdom and also the body wisdom to use find our compass and strengthen that. So thank you so much, Miranda. I really appreciate it. And again, thank you for all coming and sharing your challenges and wisdom.
You're welcome.
Thank you.